Hey everybody, happy Friday morning. Just wanted to come in and talk to you guys with a couple of different thoughts. I love to give you some time to process through the Zoom calls that we have. And we talked a lot on Sunday about taking authority, about speaking out loud, but there's a point in there that I need to reiterate to you today. And we also have touched on the idea that while we understand we have an enemy, we have a voice of sabotage. Some of you call him Ed. I like to call him the enemy. Same thing. You have authority over that. And one of the ways that we take authority, one of the big ways, is speaking out loud. But I want to back up just a little bit in the process and remind you of what happens when we have an interaction with the enemy, right? So, what happens first is that the enemy plants a thought. Now, if you are in a area of vulnerability, remember I had you guys think about like where are you most vulnerable to agreeing with enemy thoughts. You made those lists. You listed people, you listed places, you listed times of day, you listed events. Hopefully you did that. It's so important. If you didn't do it, go back and do it. So it's important for you to know those areas where you tend to or have tended to in the past have been more vulnerable. So the enemy plants a thought, which he does all day long, and many times we can just swat them down. We can speak back to them quickly and just shut them down. But sometimes when you are in one of those areas where you have tended to be vulnerable, areas of vulnerability in the past, you really need to have your guard up. And so when you are in one of those places and the enemy plants a thought, here's what you have to understand about your authority. One, speaking works. Speaking out loud works. The more specific you can get, the better. It helps and it works just to say, no, I'm not doing that. But if you can, in the moment, understand that there is an opportunity for you to agree with the thought or deny the thought. That is even more powerful than just speaking. So I guess for the sake of example, if you are alone, right? And like one of your biggest danger zones is being by yourself. One of your biggest areas of vulnerability is being by yourself. And then everybody leaves and you get that thought, oh, everybody's gone, you can eat. And what the enemy says to you is, no one will know, right? Because that's one of the typical things he says. He also says, you always do this. You always eat when people leave. He's basically like, hey, it's me and you, we're alone, you know what we always do together. And so you've got this sabotaging thought, you should go eat before people come back because you can do it in secret, no one will know what you've done. And there is an opportunity here for you to do one of two things. You can speak out loud and say, no, I'm not going to do that. But if this is a particular area of vulnerability, you need to take it a step further. You need to say, what lie is the enemy trying to get me to agree with? So the first lie is, this is what you always do. Because that's really easy to fall into. That's where he's trying to make this part of your identity. He's trying to make this about who you are. And you have to literally speak back to that and say, in the past I've done that, but then I have felt ashamed and even more lonely. Eating while I'm alone makes me feel more lonely and more shame and more stuck. And I'm not going to do that tonight. You see, the difference is getting really specific and addressing that thing he's trying to get you to agree to. Right? The other lie is no one will know. And you have to speak back to that. You have to say, the fact that no one will know creates greater shame for me, and it makes me feel lonely, and it makes me feel worse. I don't want to be a secret eater. I'm not doing that tonight. So you're adding some details into your response. But what I want you to see from this example is You never have to do what the enemy is suggesting that you do. You don't have to. He has no power to make you act. There is always a moment where you choose to agree with him or you choose to deny the power of what he's saying to you. And sometimes you need to get more specific. And if you're struggling with this and you have been working through speaking out loud, saying, no, I'm not going to do that, and that's not enough, you find yourself giving in, you've got to explore, what is it that I'm agreeing with the enemy about? What is it that the enemy is saying to me that I ultimately say, yes, I agree, and I'm choosing to do this because I agree with you? Because remember, the enemy always lies. Always. He always lies. So there has to be a moment where you agree with the lie of the enemy in order for you to then act. And so you need to back up and look at situations where you've struggled, where you have given in, and say, what lie did I agree with the enemy on? And what is the truth? Because he's going to come at you with that same thing because it worked. As long as it works, the enemy will keep coming at you with that same thing. You defeat him a few times, that thing won't be a thing for you anymore. That's where things get broken off. When the enemy tries something and you shut it down and you don't agree with him and you repeat that process, he starts to realize, well, that doesn't work. He'll come mess with you in some other way, but that same old thing won't get you. As long as you're in agreement and it works, he's going to continue to come at you in that way. So you can actually use your challenges, use your struggles to say, what is it that I'm agreeing with that he's saying to me? Because it requires agreement on your part. You have to agree with whatever the lie is. And then you have to make a plan and act on it. Physically move your body and go act on it. So backing up and saying, in order for me to act, I've got to agree. So if I don't agree, if I disagree, I speak the opposite, then I will take an opposite action. I will get myself out of the scenario that allows me to give in. I will pull myself out of that situation. I will put one of those things, those temporary strategies in place that makes it difficult for me to follow through on that. But I just want to encourage you to really use those situations where you may be frustrated or angry with yourself and say, well, there's no reason for me to be angry with myself. I got to use this situation to get a better hold on how the enemy is getting me to agree with him. Because the truth is, it's always a lie. So figure out what the lie is that you've agreed with and then counter it with the truth. And if you can identify the lie, and you don't know what the truth is, post it here in the group. Me and others, we know the truth to whatever the lie is that you've been believing. Because guess what? The enemy is not a creator. He is nothing new. He recycles the same old lies for every single one of us. He's told me the same lie he's told you. He's not creative. He has a small bag of tricks, and he throws that same bag of lies, the same bag of tricks at every single one of us. So whatever it is you're facing today, somebody in this group has overcome that very lie. You just need to figure out, what is the lie that I agree with? Because in order for you to act, you must first agree that the enemy is offering you something that in that moment you decide is worth it. And so you've got maybe some work to do around that if you're struggling. Also just want to briefly talk about, why is nutrition so important? Like, couldn't I do this group and not have food attached to it, not really talk about a specific way of eating, not encourage, low carb or keto or carnivore? And the answer to that is not really. The truth is always the truth. And I am teaching truth to you, and the methods that I'm teaching you work. But here's the thing. The reason nutrition is so important is because you need to be free of physical cravings in order to be able to address the emotional and compulsive issues. If you're dealing with physical cravings, if your actual nutrition needs are not met, then it is nearly impossible to have that issue itself compounding the emotional and compulsive. So you've got to first meet your nutritional needs, so then you can identify what those aren't. So if I'm feeling hungry all the time and I know my nutritional needs are met, that hunger is going to either be emotional or compulsive. And I can't work through that if I have physical nutritional needs too. So that's important. The other thing that's so important about following a low carb, ketogenic, carnivore diet is that it is anti-inflammatory. When you remove inflammation from your body, one, you're going to live longer and not get heart disease, and you're not going to have diabetes. There's all these great reasons. I'm not going to get into all that today. But inflammation affects your brain. You need to be able to think clearly. And so when you are eating an anti-inflammatory diet, when you are eating a diet that removes inflammation, you're able to use your brain to work through these issues. You really, really need that. It's so important to tie those two things together. And then finally, and I'll just add on about anti-inflammatory. You can, if you're eating low carb, but you're still eating ingredients that cause inflammation, you might lose weight, but you're not going to get the full benefit of healing and that mental clarity. I know people that are doing low carb and they say, well, I'm just not, I'm still not thinking clearly. I haven't gotten that, rush. You can be in ketosis and still be very, very inflamed. I've done that. I did Atkins back in the 90s and early 2000s, and ingredients weren't a focus. I was still eating things like wheat. I was still eating things like beans. I was still eating things that cause inflammation. So I didn't get that clear thinking. We need to be able to think clearly. And as I said, finally, low fat is no good, right? So whether you're doing carnivore, whether you're doing keto or low carb, or some variation of that, it is important to have healthy amounts of appropriate fats that don't cause inflammation, fats that come from nature. That's how you know what fats are good and what fats are bad. If it comes directly from nature, it's good. If it has to be created in a factory, it's bad. Your body, it's going to create inflammation in your body, and more importantly, your brain. Remember, our goal here is to be fueled by fat. So even when we're not eating, our body has a fuel source because it will burn our own body fat for energy. So you don't get those dips. You don't have it. Also, it lends itself to healing because you're not constantly needing to eat. When you're fueled by carbohydrates for energy, your body can't create carbohydrates. You have to constantly eat. So therefore, you're constantly thinking about the next food. And we want to pull back from that. You're not going to get food freedom if you're constantly having to eat. You want to eat enough, and you want to eat the right things that trigger your metabolism and cause you to burn fat for fuel. And that way, even if you're not consuming food in that moment, your body is still feasting. It's feasting on what you've stored as fat over the years as you were eating things that weren't so good for you. So anyway, I hope that's just a little bit on nutrition and why it's so important and why you really can't fully do this. You won't be fully successful unless you also embrace the nutrition part of that. Also, just want to reiterate, if you have specific questions, sometimes it's just a matter of you really truly understanding why something is harmful to your body. I know there are people that are like, but Jessica, why are beans bad? Because I mentioned beans, right? And I can go through that. But why is fruit bad? Isn't that natural? You can ask me those questions because I could do a whole video on just fruit. I could do a whole video on just beans and lectins and the plant poisons that are in them, but I need to know what you need. So if you have specific nutrition questions, if you're having trouble letting go of something because in your head it's healthy, you've heard that it's not good, you've heard that, for whatever reason it's not on the list of things you should eat, ask about it. Sometimes it just takes you being thoroughly convinced something isn't good for you in order for you to let go of it. If you secretly think, but this is still good for me, then you're gonna justify eating it. So feel free to ask those questions. I'm here for that. I'd love to support you in that way. Some months our groups are more focused on nutrition. Sometimes they're more focused on behavior. I do try to have some balance, but we're very behavioral focused this month. in this month of breakthrough, in this month of gratitude. We are very focused on behaviors, but nutrition is very, very important. So anyway, hope this is helpful for you. Again, always open to all your questions about any of those things. And I'm here for you. Looking forward to our call on Sunday night at 7 p.m. Eastern. Don't forget, I put a list of questions for you to really work through regarding the upcoming holiday. Work through those before the call, because that will open you up to hear what I have to say, some solutions for some of those things. If you haven't considered them before then, it might not be as helpful for you. It also can allow you to ask your specific questions about your family situation or the foods that you're going to serve. So anyway, those are things that if you're prepared a little bit for that call on Sunday night, it will actually help it be more effective for you. So anyway, everybody have a great, great day, and I will talk to you soon.